Music Band. Welcome to the debut episode of Pure Pop Pleasantries. This is the show that will be reviewing and going over the entire discography of one of the greatest groups of all time, as well as one of the greatest teams of songwriters of all time, next to these guys. And that is the group, the Bee Gees. Now, for me, the Bee Gees are right next to Lennon and McCartney as songwriters, and that is high praise indeed if you know how much I love the Beatles. So this is my first episode of Pure Pop Pleasantries, and there's no better place to start than at the beginning, or somewhat at the beginning, with their debut album, their international debut album, Bee Gees First. Now, the Bee Gees had released 2 albums before this in Australia, but we'll get to those later. But this is their first international release. So Bee Gees First was released in July of 1967 in England and Europe, and then released here in the States in August of 1967. What I'm going to do with these reviews is I'm going to give a little background, but mainly what I'm going to do is I'm going to give out a couple song recommendations to listen to, as well as some of the better well-known songs and kind of hits off the albums. So what you'll want to do is check out those songs if you like them, and then dive deep into the album if you really get into these songs. But what I want to do first, at least with this album, is since a lot of people only know the Bee Gees in a certain era, I wanted to kind of give a couple suggestions of albums that if you like or a fan of those albums, that you most certainly enjoy Bee Gees First. So here's a list of a couple of albums that I think are in the same category as Bee Gees First. So the list includes The Zombies, Odyssey and Oracle, The Left Bank, Walk Away Renee / Pretty Ballerina, any of the Association's 1960s albums, The Moody Blues, In Search of the Lost Chord, and Days of Future Past, the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, the Byrds' Younger Than Yesterday, the Beatles' Revolver and Sgt. Pepper's albums, the Rolling Stones' Aftermath and Between the Buttons, Pink Floyd's the first Pink Floyd album, sorry I lost my place there, A Pipe Right That Gets It Done, the Kinks' Face to Face, the Small Faces' self-titled album, and the Young Rascals' Groovin' album. So if you're a fan of any of those albums, I would stake my reputation that you'll most certainly enjoy much, if not all, of the Bee Gees' first album. Now, some of the better known songs of this album would be To Love Somebody. That would be the most well-known song of this album, hands down. Now, To Love Somebody has been covered numerous times throughout the last 54 years, but at this point, I must stop and let everyone know out there who's watching this video that as I go through each of these Bee Gees albums, and I list the most famous of the songs off each of these albums, it's important to know that these are all originals written by the Brothers Gibb, by Barry, Robin, and Morris. These songs are all written in-house. It's important because you may know a lot of these cover versions of these very, very famous songs, and you may say to yourself, now wait a minute, I know that song from this group or from that artist. And that's great because these are great songs and right for covering. But every song that's on every one of these studio albums by the Bee Gees was indeed an original written by Barry, Robin, and Morris. Now, sometimes it would be written just by Barry and Robin. Most of the times it would be written by all 3 brothers. And sometimes it would be written by one of each of the 3 brothers. And we'll get to those albums as we get along. But for the bulk of this album, all these songs were written by Barry, Robin, and Morris. And some of them were written by just Barry and Robin. Now, To Love Somebody, getting back to Love Somebody. That song has been covered by so many artists. I am not going to go through the entire list. You can always go on Wikipedia. You can go on other great sites. But here are some of the artists that have covered To Love Somebody throughout the last 54 years. We have artists such as Eric Burdon and the Animals, Nina Simone, Janis Joplin, the Flying Burrito Brothers, including Graham Parsons. We have Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. And one of the latest cover versions is of Michael Bublé, however you pronounce that. So that is the most famous song off Bee Gees First. Now, I'm going to give you a couple of my favorites off this album. And as I do that, I'm going to flip over this repress to show you the back of their debut, their international debut. Now, 3 of my favorites of this album include the song Please Read Me. Now, Please Read Me is a song about a fellow who is lying on the couch of his psychiatrist's office, kind of dealing with some issues. So yes, the Bee Gees wrote songs like that on their first album release. Another great song is entitled Craze Vincent Kirk Royal Academy of Arts. Now, that's a mouthful. And this is a great piano-based song that kind of hard to say what it's really about. It's a great title. Just have to listen to it. And then another great song is a title track, or the opening track, not the title track, the opening track entitled Turn of the Century. This is a great, great song, horns, some strings, and it's all about the turn of the century from the end of the 19th century turning into the 20th century. So 1899 turning into the year 1900. The song is all about bicycles built for two, the town crier at the corner, yelling out today's news and headlines. Really cool track and a great way to open up their first international debut album. So those are some songs that you should check out. Like I said, all those songs are available for free on YouTube, as well as purchasing on Spotify and Apple Music. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into the cover for a little bit. So the cover features all 5 of the Bee Gees. Now, yes, there's 5 Bee Gees. There's 3 brothers, Barry, Robin, and Morris over there. But they're augmented on their first 4 albums by drummer Colin Peterson and lead guitarist Vince Maloney. And I'll get into them at a later date. But again, there's documentaries and lots of books to go into the history. I really want to focus on the albums. So this is a great album because it is written exclusively by the brothers. So they're all original tunes. And Colin is a great drummer. Vince is a great lead guitarist. Morris is a great multi-instrumentalist. And Barry, Robin, and Morris are great vocalists. Now, all these songs are written in-house. That's important to remember. All of their albums have original albums. There are no covers on any original Bee Gees album, which is really very rare for any group, and especially any group that lasts as long as they did. But the cover is noteworthy because besides showing all 5 of the Bee Gees, the psychedelic design shown on the bottom here was done by none other than Klaus Voormann. Now, Klaus Voormann is a very good friend of the Beatles and also did the cover of the Revolver album. And later we did the covers of the anthologies 1, 2, and 3 in the 90s for the Beatle reissue project. So Klaus did the cover of this, and I think it's an amazing cover. Again, this album is not heavily psychedelic, but definitely there are some flourishes of psychedelia throughout this album on tracks such as Every Christian Lion-Hearted Man Will Show You, and a couple other tracks as well. But what I wanted to end with is I wanted to give a shout out to their arranger, Bill Shepherd. Now, their arranger, Bill Shepherd, really took these wonderful songs that the brothers wrote and added wonderful strings and horns to these songs to kind of flesh them out and give them what I call a full body tone to them. These are great songs, stripped back, just an acoustic guitar. When the Bee Gees play these songs live with just the 3 of them and an acoustic guitar, they are amazing. But the arrangements done by Bill Shepherd certainly warrant a shout out. So I wanted to give a shout out to Bill Shepherd. So this is Bee Gees First. I strongly suggest if you're a fan of any of those albums I listed, or you're a fan of just wonderfully written and arranged music, check out Bee Gees First. It is certainly worth your time, and you will not be disappointed that you checked out these songs. If you only know the big, big dance hits of the Bee Gees, like Staying Alive, you need to listen to this. This will blow your mind. This is nothing like those dance songs from the late 70s from the Bee Gees. So this is Bee Gees First. So that will be it for now. I want to thank you so much for spending some time with me on the very first episode of Pure Pop Pleasantries. And until then, I'll see you in the next one.